This is how a bobcat looks when I first put the hide on the form. It doesn't look too good, and it's wet, and it needs to have the face and the hide patterns adjusted. The very first thing I like to do is get the ears set in place. They're always sticking out like crazy, so I try to form them into place, press them down into the head so they're not sticking out too far. This object I'm using right here is called a stout rougher. It's sold as a product to use to rough up your forms and make the foam more adhesive to the hide glue, but it has these little teeth on it that are really great for gripping onto the skin while not pulling the hair out, and I use it to adjust those hair patterns on the face. Now, once I've got my ears in place and my basic hair pattern set, I like to take my Master Blaster air blower and go ahead and fluff the face a little bit. You might have the eyes and everything set just perfectly, but when the hair's wet, it just throws the whole look off, and I feel like I can't make my adjustments properly. So I like to see what I'm doing and go ahead and fluff this fur up just a little bit. Later on, I'll be drying the entire animal with this, but we want to sew him up first. So now I'm preparing to tuck around the mouth, putting a little Pro 1 hide paste in there. Now some super glue around the edge. For this open mouth, the use of the word tuck is not as appropriate as just gluing around the jaw set. This is a plastic Moore jaw insert, and I just use super glue to glue around the plastic. It is in some ways easier than doing a closed mouth mount. I like to find my center point on the lower lip first, then I go up to each side of the mouth and glue those in. And you see from there I'm kind of moving side to side. I'm going from one side of the mouth to the other, back to the front, then back to the back. This helps me to kind of stack the skin along the way. If you start at the front of your mouth or the corner of your mouth and just move in a straight line, you may end up with some excess skin when you get to point B. Now I flip the cat upside down, and I'm going to do the very same thing for this upper part of the mouth. I put super glue all around the skin and then take my tool and find my center point first. That way we won't get off center. And I'm just gluing it up against this plastic jaw set. Just a couple millimeters at a time. A very thin, detailed tool helps for this because we're not tucking the skin, we're just pulling it up gently against that plastic jaw set. This type of jaw set makes for very easy finish work later on. There will be a small line of epoxy work you'll have to do, but other than that, there's no sculpting of the inner mouth or the lips. It's all recreated there in plastic. So I really enjoy these. I used to be such a purist, wanting to start from, a basic jaw set, but I really enjoy those now. So here we go, onto the eyes. I go ahead and get my eyelid skin on the outside so I can tuck it with this thin tool, just like you would any other animal. Tucking it down into the clay, and then I can press gently against it to lock it in up against that eye. These are the reflective acrylic eyes from Matuska Supply, so I have to be a little more careful. They're not glass, so I'm careful with my metal tool. Just doing some basic shaping of the eyelid right now. I like to keep the eye nice and clean. It's kind of the same concept as fluffing my hide earlier. I like to see what I'm doing and keep things not messy. So I clean the eye with some Windex and a Q-tip. I'll get it to about that point with the shape and then move on to the other and then move on to the rest of the mount. There's no need to focus on any one area for too long. We just want to get this hide in place and can adjust the details later. See how I do a really rounded lower eyelid But when it comes to the top, it's a bit more angled, and it just barely touches the top of the pupil. This cat is going to be aggressive with a really angry face, so I'm giving him a much sharper look to the top eyelid so that he has those angry sort of eyebrows and eyelid. I got my nose kind of tucked into place, and this is obviously an optional thing, but at this point, visually, I don't want to see a faded nose. I want to start to see some of my nose color. So I put a little bit of this Pim Pastel powder on the nose, and look how that made it look so much more natural. And I won't have to do much more finish work to this nose. Now I'm actually starting to bring the hair patterns even more properly into place. Before I move on to sewing him, then I'll take that Master Blaster and fluff the entire thing up really good, and that's going to give him his final look. Just wait and see how good this looks when it's finally finished. But for now, a little more fluff to the face. I just love to have that face perfectly in place before I move on to sewing. I can then just sit back, relax, and know that I'm in the home stretch. And here comes the finished and fluffed cat. What a difference from what we started with. That was a big seam line. I had to sew down that dorsal cut, but with the addition of a little bit of clay under there and then fluffing it with the Master Blaster, that looks great. Look at that face. This customer wanted a really ticked off cat, really angry expression, and I think we got that.